Chapter 1. Going to bed. It is 10 o'clock at night. The old man is watching TV. TV program is finished. He wants to sleep. He switches off the TV. He stretches and yawns. He goes into the bedroom. He switches on the table lamp. He sits on the bed. He takes off his shoes and socks. He takes off the sweater. He takes off the trousers. He puts on the pajamas. He pulls back the blanket. He switches off the table lamp. He sits on bed. He lies down. He pulls up the blanket. He falls asleep. Finally, he is dreaming about his family.
Chapter 2. Good morning. It is 7 o'clock in the morning. The old lady wakes up. She stretches and yawns. She gets out of bed. She does the morning exercises. She goes into the bedroom. She washes her face. She comes back into her bedroom. She changes her clothes. She makes the bed. She goes into the kitchen. She prepares breakfast. She has a cup of tea and a piece of cakes. She reads the newspaper. She goes into the bedroom again. She cleans her teeth. She puts on her heavy coat. She kisses her husband, her son, and her dog. Finally, she goes to her work.
Chapter 3. Breakfast Cereal. It is a sunny day. The old man wants to have breakfast cereal. Firstly, he takes the food packet. He opens it. He pours some food into the bowl. A little food spills out of the bowl. He picks it up and puts it back into the bowl. He closes the food packet. He sprinkles a little sugar on the food. He pours some milk into the bowl. He tastes it. He chews it. Finally, he swallows it. Chapter 4. Scrambled Eggs. It is a sunny day. The old man wants to have scrambled eggs. Firstly, he takes 3 eggs and a frying pan. He cracks the eggs into the bowl one by one. He takes a mixer. He puts it into the bowl. He switches on it. He sprinkles a little salt on the food. He pours some milk into the bowl. He stirs it again and again. He drops some cooking oil into the frying pan. He puts it on the stove. He switches on it. He pours the food into the frying pan. He stirs it again and again. It smells good. He tastes it. He switches off the stove. He transfers the food into the plate. Finally, he eats the food eagerly. Chapter 5. A Piece of Toast. Our character is an old man. He wants to have a piece of toast. Firstly, he takes a piece of bread from a loaf. He puts it into the toaster. He switches on it. A few seconds later, it is good. It comes out of the toaster. He puts it on the plate. He spreads some butter on it. It looks delicious. He puts some jam on it. He spreads it again. He halves it with a knife. He takes the first one. He puts it into his mouth. He chews it. He swallows it. He takes another one. He chews it and swallows it. Finally, there is no more on the plate. He has eaten them all. Chapter 6. A Glass of Milk. The boy wants to drink a glass of milk. Firstly, he pours some milk into the glass. A little milk spills out of the glass. He goes to the basin. He takes a piece of cloth. It gets it wet. He dries it. He comes back to the table. He rubs the table with the wet cloth. He goes to the basin again. He washes the cloth under the tap. He hangs it up on the water pipe. He comes back to the table. He drinks his milk. At the time, his mother comes into the room and scolds him. Chapter 7. Washing your hands. The old man's hands are dirty. He wants to wash them. He goes to the basin. He turns on the tap. The tap runs. He takes the soap from the soap dish. He washes his hands under the tap with the soap. He pours the soap back in the soap dish. He washes his hands again. He turns off the tap. He takes the towel on the rack. He cleans his hands with the towel. Finally, he hangs up the towel on the rack whistling. Chapter 8. Soup for lunch. The old man wants to have soup for lunch. Firstly, he takes the soup tin and tin opener. He opens the tin with the tin opener. He pours some soup into the saucepan. He adds some water into it because it is thick. He stirs it again and again. He puts it on the stove. He covers it with the lid. He switches on the stove. A few minutes later, the soup gets boiled. He lifts the lid. He stirs it. He tastes. He switches off the stove. He pours the soup into the bowl. He tastes again. It is very hot. He blows on the soup. Now the soup is getting cold. Finally, he drinks the soup eagerly. Chapter 9. Making tea. The boy wants to have a cup of tea. Firstly, he goes into the kitchen. He takes a kettle. He fills the kettle with some water. He puts it on the stove. He switches on the stove. A few minutes later, the water gets boiled. He switches off the stove. He takes the tea bag. He puts it on the cup. He pours some boiling water into the cup. He takes the tea bag out of the cup, in case it becomes strong. He pours some milk into the cup. Now the tea is ready to drink. At the time, his uncle comes to his house. He makes another cup of tea. Finally, they drink the tea together.
Chapter 10. Getting home. The old lady is getting home. She goes upstairs. She takes the key out of her handbag. She puts it into the keyhole. She turns the key to the right side. Thus, she unlocks the door. She takes the key out of the keyhole. She puts it back into her handbag. She turns the door knob to the right side. She opens the door. She goes into the room. She closes the door. She pulls up the door. She switches on the table lamp. Finally, she sits in the armchair looking at her husband's photographs on the wall.
Chapter 11. At the doctor's office. The boy is waiting at the doctor's office. He is not feeling well. The doctor comes into the room. She shakes his hands. She asks him, "What's the matter?" The boy explains to the doctor. He has headache, backache, and chill. The doctor takes the temperature and pulse. She listens to his heart. She looks at his eyes. She looks in his ear. She asks him to open his mouth wide and say, ah, ah.
The boy said, "Ah, ah."
The doctor examines his tongue and throat. Then she says that he has flu. Finally, the doctor asks him to go back home to take some medicine and to take rest in bed the whole day. Chapter 12. A vitamin pill. The old man thinks he is weak. He wants to take vitamin pill. Firstly, he takes the vitamin bottle. He opens it. He takes the pill out of the bottle. He closes the bottle. He puts it back. He puts the pill into his mouth. He drinks a glass of water. He swallows it, but the pill sticks in his throat. He drinks another glass of water. Finally, the pill goes down into his stomach. Chapter 13. You're getting sick. The old man is getting sick. He sneezes again and again. He takes the handkerchief out of his pocket. He rubs his nose. He rubs his eyes. He covers his nose with the handkerchief. He blows his nose. A little mucus comes out. He wants to take medicine. He goes to the drugstore. On the way, he falls down on the ground. He tries to stop. He walks to the drugstore slowly. At the drugstore, he buys some medicine and comes back home. At his house, he takes some medicine and takes rest the whole day. Chapter 14. Putting drops in your eyes. The old man has poor eyesight. He wants to use eye drop. Firstly, he takes the eye drop bottle. He opens it. He squeezes the tube. He sees up. He adjusts his face in the right position. He opens his eyes with his hand. He drops the medicine, but the medicine misses. It flows on his cheek. He rubs the medicine with a handkerchief. He tries again. This time, the medicine falls right into his eyes. He blinks again and again. Finally, the medicine comes into his eye thoroughly. Chapter 15. A dental appointment. The boy is waiting at the dentist's office. He has toothache. He presses his teeth with his hand. He can't bear it, so he cries out. He looks at his watch. He calls the doctor. A beautiful receptionist appears in the window. She takes him into the room. She asks him to sit in the armchair. The doctor comes into the room. She asks him, "What's the matter?" The boy explains to the doctor. He has toothache. He can't eat any food. He can't play with his friends. He lies down. The doctor asks him to open his mouth wide. The doctor examines his teeth with the instruments. The doctor pulls out some teeth. The boy clenches his fist. The doctor gaps and fills some teeth. While the doctor is curing, the boy is thinking about his toys and food. Chapter 16. A bloody knee. The old man is walking along the street whistling. He gazes at something. Suddenly, he falls down on the ground. He tries to stop. He feels pain. He is weeping. He looks at his knee. He sees the bloody knee. He rubs the blood with a handkerchief. He limps to the drugstore slowly. At the drugstore, he buys some medicine. He comes back home. At his house, he washes his wound under the tap. He drops some iodine in his wound. His wound stings. He blows on it. He takes the handy plaster. He opens it. He sticks it on his wound. Finally, he throws some litter into the dustbin. Chapter 17. A broken plate. Suddenly, the boy drops the plate on the table. It breaks into pieces. He gathers the broken pieces. He takes the glue tube out of the cupboard. He unscrews the tube. He squeezes it. A little glue comes out. He puts it on the broken pieces. He fixes them one by one. A few minutes later, it becomes fixed. He puts it down on the table carefully. He screws the tube. He puts it back in the cupboard. The next day, the broken plate is all right. At the time, his friends comes to his house. He shows the plate to his friends and says, "The glue is very nice." Chapter 18. A broken glass. Suddenly, the boy drops the glass on the floor. It breaks into pieces. He gathers the broken pieces. He does it carefully, because he fears that it can get his fingers. He brings them to the dustbin. He throws them into the dustbin. He goes into the room. He takes a broom and a dustpan. He gathers the pieces with the broom and puts them into the dustpan. He throws them into the dustbin. He keeps them back in the room. He takes another glass on the shelf. At the time, his mother comes into the room and scolds him. Chapter 19. Fire. The old man is preparing the meal in the kitchen. His grandchild is playing near him. Suddenly, the fire breaks out in the frying pan. He tries to cover it with the lid, but the fire moves to another place. This place catches fire. He cannot control the fire. He brings his grandchild and runs out of the room. He closes the door. He is very present-minded. He rings up the emergency. He reports about the fire. The operator records his report. He warns other family members. They all ran out of their rooms. The fire engine rushes to this place. The firefighters put out the fire in a few minutes. At the time, his grandchildren are weeping. He consoles them. Finally, he comes back to his house. He sees that everything is burnt. Chapter 20. Stop Thief. A thief wants to rob a woman. Firstly, he takes the gun out of his waist. He points at the woman with the gun. He asks her to hold her hands up and drops the purse. He picks up the purse. He is ready to run away. At this time, the police comes here. The thief runs away. The police runs after him. The police shouts, "Stop thief, stop!" But the thief keeps on running. The police opens fire into the air. The thief stops and drops his guns and purse. He holds his hands up. He says, "Don't shoot me, don't shoot me." The police takes him in his car. At this time, the old man comes here and says, "Don't worry about that. Crime doesn't pay." Chapter 21. Sewing on a button. The old man wants to sew a button on his coat. He cuts the thread. He threads the needle. He makes a knot at the end of the thread. He sticks the needle through the cloth. He puts the needle through a hole of the button. He puts the needle through another hole of the button. He sticks it back through the cloth. He pulls it tight. He does it again and again. He finishes it. Finally, he bites the thread off. Chapter 22. Taking care of baby. Some new neighbors comes to the old man's house. They request him to take care of baby. The old man loves the baby, so he accepts it. Firstly, he puts the baby on his thigh. He kisses the baby. He wants to know whether the baby is boy or girl. He kisses the baby again. He hugs it. He squeezes it. He offers some food to the baby. He feeds the baby again and again. Suddenly, the baby spills out the food on his clothes. His clothes get dirty. He puts the baby in the armchair. He cleans his clothes. Finally, he is tired of taking care of baby. Chapter 23. Painting a picture. The boy is not only diligent but also persevering. He always spends his time wisely. During the summer holidays, he studies how to paint. Firstly, he spreads the old newspaper on the floor. He takes a piece of drawing paper out of the drawer. He takes a paint can. He opens it. He takes a brush. He dips the brush in the paint. He paints the picture. He gets it dry. He closes the paint can. He puts it back on the shelf in the cupboard. He washes the brush under the tap. He wipes it with a piece of cloth. He hangs it up on the wall. He folds up the old newspaper. Finally, he keeps them back in the cupboard. Chapter 24. Changing a light bulb. The old man is an avid reader. He can't help reading. Today, he gets an idea to read the book, but the weather is gloomy. He switches on the table lamp, but it is out of order. He does it, one after another. Finally, he finds out that the bulb is burnt. He wants to change for a new one. He takes the new bulb out of the cupboard. He unplugs the table lamp. He removes the cover from the table lamp. He unscrews the old bulb. He screws the new bulb. He puts the cover back on the table lamp. He plugs it. Now it is all right. He throws the old bulb into the dustbin. Chapter 25. Putting up a towel rack. The boy wants to put up a towel rack in the bedroom. Firstly, he takes the ready-made towel rack. He puts it on the wall. He marks the places. He puts it down on the floor. He drills the marks on the wall. He puts the rack on the holes. He puts the screw into the holes. He screws it with a screwdriver. There are 4 screws. He screws them one by one. He adjusts the towel rack. He tightens it with force. Finally, towel rack is ready in the bedroom. Chapter 26. Writing a letter. The boy is very sociable. He has large circular friends. Today, he wants to write letters to his friend. Firstly, he takes a piece of paper. He writes down the date at the top of the paper. He writes down some lines. At the end of the letter, he signs his name. He folds up the paper. He puts it into the envelope. He licks the envelope. He seals it. He writes down his friend's address on the envelope. He writes down his address at the corner of the envelope. He tears off a piece of stamp. He licks it. He sticks it on the envelope. He brings the letters to the mailbox whistling. Finally, he mails the letter. Chapter 27. Washing dishes. The boy is to wash the dirty dishes. It is his duty. He fills the basin with some water. He squeezes the liquid soaps into it. He washes the dishes under the tap roughly. He puts them into the basin one by one. He washes the dishes thoroughly. He rinses the dishes under the tap. He stacks them in the dish shelf. He lets the dirty water out. He sprinkles some detergent powder into it. He scrubs the basin with a sponge. Finally, he cleans the basins with some water. Chapter 28. Testing. Our character is an old man. He is a workaholic. He can't help working. Today, he gets an idea to clean the living room. Firstly, he takes a piece of cloth. He goes into the room. He removes the book on the top shelf. He digs the top shelf. He digs the middle shelf. He digs the bottom shelf. He digs the table lamp and sofa. He puts down some litters on the floor. He puts a piece of cloth at the top of the broom. He removes the cobwebs at the corner of the room. He plugs the vacuum cleaner. He vacuums the floor whistling. Finally, the whole room is clean. He is very satisfied with himself. Chapter 29. Times to clean house. The mother asks her sons to clean the house. He puts on the apron. He sprinkles some detergent powder into the basin. He scrubs the basin with a sponge. He swipes the floor in the kitchen. He fills the bucket with some water. He squeezes the liquid soap into it. He gets the mop wet. He mops the floor. He digs the furniture. He throws the rubbish into the dustbin. He plugs the vacuum cleaner. He operates it. He vacuums the floor in the living room. He keeps them back in the room. Finally, the whole room is cleansed. His mother rewards him with a delicious food. Chapter 30. Ice cream and TV. The old man wants to have ice cream watching TV. He goes into the kitchen. He opens the fridge and ice compartment. He takes the ice cream bucket out of it. He adjusts the temperature. He puts the bucket on the table. He opens it. He transfers some ice cream into the cup. He leaves the bucket on the table. He goes into the living room, whistling. He switches on the TV. He watches the TV having ice cream. 1 hour later, ice cream is no more. He wants another helping. He goes to the table again. He finds that all ice cream melts away. He blames himself constantly of me. Chapter 31. Shopping for a coat. The old man is a manager in the company. He has to attend the emergency meeting in foreign country. He needs a new coat, so he goes shopping for a coat. He stands in front of the showroom. He looks inside through the glass. He sees what he likes. He goes into the room. He takes the coat off the rack. He takes the coat off the hanger. He tries it on. He looks at himself in the mirror. It is too big. He takes it off. He puts it back on the hanger. He hangs it up on the rack. He tries on another one. It fits him. He looks at the price tag. The tag says $100. He thinks that it is reasonably priced. Finally, he buys it.
Chapter 32. Eating Out. Our characters are the two ladies. They are spinsters. They have the well-picked job. They always spend much money on food. They are not only gluttons but also gourmets. Today is office holiday. They get an idea to eat out. They go to the restaurant. The waiter ushers them. They sit at the table. They read the menu. At that time, a beautiful waitress comes to them. "What would you like to order, madam?" The first lady ordered 3 courses. Second lady ordered 2 courses. The waitress brings one course after another. She puts them on the table. They start to eat, having a chat. 1 hour later, they finish their meal. The waiter comes to them and cleans the table. Just then, the waitress comes again. "What would you like to order for your dessert?" They order ice cream and coffee. The waitress brings them on the tray with the bill. They enjoy their dessert, having a chat. Some time later, their chat comes to an end. They go to the counter. They pay the bill. Finally, they leave some money on the table for the girl as a tip.
Chapter 33. Using a payphone. The old man wants to contact his nephews on the phone for urgent case, but his phone is out of order. He has to use payphone. He goes to the phone booth. He clears the coin box. He picks up the receiver. He takes some coin out of his pocket. He inserts the coin into the machine. He listens to the phone. He dials the numbers. He hears the engaged songs. He hangs up the receiver back. He takes the coin out of the machine. He has to wait a few minutes. While he is waiting, he whistles a tune. He's very long-tempered. He tries again. This time, he hears the calling tone. A few minutes later, his nephew answers the phone. In this way, he can contact his nephew on the phone. Chapter 34. Grocery Shopping. The old man wants to celebrate alms-food-giving ceremony. He goes grocery shopping. He takes a cart. He goes to the fruit counter. He picks out the fruit, such as oranges and bananas. He puts them into the cart. He selects the vegetables, such as cucumbers, onions, and garlics. He puts them into the cart. He puts some potatoes on the scales to weigh. When he gets the right weight, he puts them into the cart. He goes to another counter to buy eggs. He chooses the choicest eggs. Now the cart is full. He thinks that is enough. He goes to the cash counter. He joins the queue. A few minutes later, his turn comes. He goes to the counter. He asks, "How much is it?" Firstly, the girl empties the cart. She calculates them one by one. She charges the old man. The old man gives her some money. Then the girl packs the groceries. Finally, the old man says goodbye and comes back home.
Chapter 35. At the laundromat. Our character is a young girl studying at the university. She is the big one in the family, so she has to help her mother in the household chores. Today is school holiday, and so she is free. Therefore, she asks her mother, "What can I do for you?" Her mother replies to her, "There are a lot of dirty clothes. Please take them to the laundromat. It is not far from her house." So she puts all dirty clothes into the big basket and takes it to the laundromat. It is not far from her house, so she goes there on foot. At the laundromat, she divides the clothes dark or light color, and then she puts the dark color clothes and white color clothes into their respective washing machine. After that, she pours some super detergent powder into the machine, and then she switches on the machines. She pours some coins into the machines. When the machines are doing, she is reading a newspaper, as she is an avid reader. After a few minutes, the machines finish the washing. So she takes all of the clothes out of the machines and puts them back into the basket. And then she takes it to the drying machine and puts them into it. Then she adjusts the buttons and she puts some coins into the machine. When the machine is doing, she restarts her reading. A few minutes later, the machine finished. So she takes all of the clothes out of the machine and puts them back into the basket. And then she goes back home. At home, she divides all clothes as father's clothes and mother's clothes and etc. After that, she irons them one by one and piles them up systematically. Finally, she puts them into their respective cupboard.
Chapter 36. At the post office, our character is an old man. His son is in abroad. Yesterday, he received a letter from his son. His son often requested him to send the Myanmar traditional foods to him. So, the old man goes to the supermarket and buys the Myanmar traditional food, such as green tea leaf salad, Myanmar ready-made cuisines, etc. After that, he packs them as a parcel. Now he is ready to go to the post office. The post office is far from the supermarket, so he takes the taxi. At the post office, there are some people joining the queue, so he joins the queue. When he is joining the queue, he takes chat with the people before and after him, as he is a social man. The queue is going one by one. After a few minutes, his turn comes, so he goes to the counter. At the counter, the young clerk agrees with him friendly, as the old man always sends the parcel for his son monthly. The old man puts the parcel on the counter and asks the clerk, "Hey, dear boy, I want to send these letters to my son as usual. I think it might be £3. Please scale it." So the young man scales it and says, "You're right, dear uncle. It's £3. And then he takes the note paper on the parcel and says, "The old man, it costs £5. The old man gives him the money for the parcel and tips for him. The boy says, "Thank you, uncle. Rest assured, I will do it carefully." The old man replies him, "Thanks a lot," and says goodbye. Chapter 37. At the bank, our character is an old man. He is not only a pensioner, but also a bachelor. He is a far-sighted person, so he can live without working, because he saves a lot of money in the bank. Today, he has to go his friend's birthday, so he wants to buy a present for his friend. Therefore, he needs some money. He goes to the bank to withdraw the money. At the bank, firstly, he goes to the cash counter. At the counter, he fills the amount he wants to withdraw. After that, he signs his signature at the end of the check. And then, he joins the queue. He has to wait his turn, as many people are before him. The queue is going one by one. After a few minutes, his turn comes, so he goes to the counter. At the counter, The old man gives his check to the clerk. Then he says, "Oh, dear girls, I want to withdraw this amount and I'm in a hurry." The girl replies, "Rest assured, uncle, I will do it quickly." And then she goes to the machine and takes the monies out of the machine. At the time, the old man looks at his watch because he's worried that he cannot go to his friend's birthday party in time. After a few minutes, the girl comes back to the counter and gives him his money. The old man says, "Thank you very much." And he counts the monies X 20, 40, 60, and so on. After that, he puts them into his inside pocket. Finally, he goes out of the bank to buy a present for his friend's birthday. Chapter 38. A Haircut. Our character is a young boy. He wants to be like a rocker because he likes rock music. So he puts on the long hair. But his father doesn't like it because he is a conservative person. So he asks him to have his hair cut. He doesn't want to hear his hair cut. He thinks it is not his time. But he doesn't want to oppose his father's order. So he goes to the barber shop. At the barber shop, there are many people before him. So he goes to the chair waiting for the barber. When he is reading some journals, the barber calls him. Now his turn comes. So he puts the journal back on the table and goes to the swivel chair. He sits on the swivel chair. While the barber is cutting, they have a social chit-chat. The barber gets his hair carefully to be smart and stylish. About 15 minutes later, the barber finishes his work, and he removes the cloth out of the boy's body. The young boy looks at himself in front of the mirror. He is pleased, and then he pays the charges to the barber. At the time, the barber says the price is risen, so it is not enough. Please add some money. So the boy adds some coin and says goodbye and goes back home. Chapter 39. A Rough Bus Ride. Our character is an old man. He lives in a satellite town. He has to go to the center of town, so he will take a bus. Therefore, he goes to the city bus stop. After a few minutes, a bus comes and he gets on the bus. He inserts the bus file into the box near the driver. The bus driver gives him back a ticket. After that, the bus driver starts the engine, and so the old man loses the balance and slips down on the floor. He tries to stand up with the help of pillar and asks the driver to lessen the speed. At this time, the bus driver replies him, "Oh, uncle, I think you have no experience in taking a bus drive. I have many experience in driving, and I drive as usual. So please hold tight." The old man goes back to his seat and holds tightly ring of the seat before him. While he is gazing the views through the window, the bed is bouncing again and again, because the road is so rough. About 1 hour later, he finds out the Adams backstop. He thinks that the next backstop is Fork backstop, so he has to get off there. When he finds out the Adams backstop, he pulls the bell string. The bus is stopped. At this time, he walks slowly, as he doesn't want to fall down again. So he walks slowly to the door, and then he gets off the bus. As soon as he gets up from the bus, the drivers drive the bus away. Finally, the old man sighs heavily. Chapter 40. Taking the plane. Our character is an old man. He wants to visit to his son in America. He is going to set out today. He goes to the airport by taxi. At the airport, he waits a few minutes for the time the plane takes off. When the departure time is drawing near, All of the passengers, including him, get on the planes. On the planes, he looks for his seat. After he sits on his seat, he takes off his hat. Then he tries to weld the belt around the body. When he wears it so tight, he can't move. So he loses it. He sweats and brushes it with a handkerchief. Therefore, he tries another position. In this time, he is okay. He makes many mistakes as he has never taken a plane. Now the plane starts to take off. When the plane is flying, he takes off the belt again. And then an air hostess comes near to him and asks him, "Dear uncle, what can I do for you?" "I want to read some books," the old man replies. So she gives some books. Finally, the old man takes the plane, listens to music, and reading the book.
Chapter 41. Opening a present. The old man wants to give the present to his friend, the old lady. He buys a vase because his friend is crazy in vase. Firstly, he goes to his friend's house and gives the vase to her. The old lady accepts it and says, "Thank you so much." She wants to know what things will be inside, so she fumbles it, and then she shakes it. She gets it before she opens. After that, she unties the ribbon and tears the packing paper. She wraps it and throws it into the dustbin. She lifts the cover of the parcel. She peeks inside the parcel. Then she finds out her liking the enamel vase. She takes it out of the parcel. She says to the old man, "Thank you."
Chapter 42. A Jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. Our character is an old man. He is not only baptismal Christian, but also a pious one. Today, 31st October, is the Halloween festival day. So he wants to celebrate this festival. Firstly, he went to the market and bought a yellow pumpkin. At home, he takes the knife and thinks it will be cut like a smiling face. Firstly, he cuts the top of the pumpkin with a knife. He removes the pulse, which has been cut. There are flesh and seeds in the pumpkins, so he cuts them. He scoops them out of the pumpkin. After that, he carves the eyes and smiling mouth. Then he lights the candle and waits for a few minutes. A few minutes later, the candles melt slowly and he gets a waxen doll. So he drops the wax on the bottom of the pumpkin. He sticks the candle. Then he recovers it with the top part of the pumpkin. He puts it on the edge of the window and switches off the light off. It can be seen at the distance. Finally, he sweeps and cleans the rubbish. Chapter 43. A Thanksgiving Feast. The old man is a baptismal Christian. He is superstitious in worshiping to God. It is Thursday of 4th November, so he wants to hold a Thanksgiving festival. He cooks all the curries because he has an interest in cooking. All of the curries are ready to have, except the turkey. In the meanwhile, the turkey is being cooked. He prepares the table. He spoons, plates, knives, and so on. After a few minutes, the turkey is well cooked. So he takes it out of the steam pot. And then he takes it to the table and lays it on the center of the table as a main dish. When all of the curries are put on the table, he calls his family. All the family's members come in and take the seats respectively. They pray under their breath before they have. The old man slices the turkey and shares them to his family's members one after another. While they are having a meal, They hand over the others' carries one by one. The old man spoons a piece of turkey into his mouth and chews and swallows it. When he finished his dinner, his stomach is so tight that he can't stand. Finally, he sits on the chair and sighs heavily. Chapter 44. At the Christmas time, our character is an old man. He is a Christian. Today is 24th December. It is eve of the Christmas day, so he wants to celebrate the Christmas ceremonies tomorrow. He prepares the things to celebrate the Christmas ceremony. Firstly, he decorates the Christmas tree with the fancy things and colorful ribbons. He puts the present for his family's member under the Christmas tree. After that, they sing the Christmas carol. The old man puts the wreath on the door. He bakes the cakes by himself. The children believe that if they write the letter what they want on Christmas Eve, they could get it surely. So they hang the big stocking on the wall so that Santa Claus comes and puts the presents into it. They set out milk and cookies on Christmas Eve as a snack for Santa. On Christmas Eve's midnight, the old man goes and sees his grandchildren if they fall asleep surely. And then he puts on a white beard and a red suit like Santa Claus, and puts the presents under the Christmas tree. On the Christmas morning, the old man awakens his grandchildren and says, "There are many presents under the Christmas tree." So the children goes to the Christmas tree and find the presents. They unwrap the package. They find out the dolls and toys. At that night, the old man and his family members have the dinner. The main dish is turkey. They celebrate the Christmas ceremony after dinner.
Chapter 45. At Valentine's Day. Our character is an old man. Today is 14th February, Valentine's Day. It is a holiday honoring lovers. It is celebrated on February 14 by the custom of sending wishing cards and gifts to express affection. The cards, known as valentines, are often designed with hearts to symbolize love. Firstly, the old man gets the idea to give the card to her husband, her son, and her daughter-in-law. So she takes the thick paper and she folds it. She draws the half of a hat on the paper. She takes a pair of scissors. She cuts the paper as the line of the hat. Then she unfolds it. It appears the shade of hat. She writes Happy Valentine's Day on the hat. She makes 3 copies like it. After that, she takes and gives them to her husband, her son, and her daughter-in-law. Finally, they say Happy Valentine's Day.
Chapter 46. Wrapping a present. The old man gets an idea to give a vase to his friend. So he goes to the market and binds a vase and packing paper. At home, he wraps the vase up with the packing paper. Then he puts the vase into the paper box, and then he takes the other packing papers and puts the box on it. He holds both the edge of packing paper. He wraps the box with the packing paper step by step. He gets the tape. He tapes the box. He cuts the ribbons with the scissors. He ties the box tightly with the ribbon. At the top of the box, he makes the form like a butterfly. Finally, he takes the box and gives it to his friend. Chapter 47. A Sunday Drive. It is a Sunday. The old man and his grandchildren prepare to go on picnic. When all things are ready, they get into the car and the old man starts the engine. He looks behind and in front of the car, and then the old man drives his car out of the street and turns into the main road. He drives the car at high speed along the road. He lessens the speed because he sees the traffic light. He signals the rear belt to turn right. When his car reaches the traffic, he turns it right. After that, the car passes through the tunnel. When they are passing through the tunnel, his grandchildren counts the number. And then the car crosses over the river on the bridge. The car passes through the forest. At this time, his grandchildren tell the old man to stop the car because they are hungry. They get out of the car and stretch out. They take the small carpets and food. The old man spreads the carpet under the shady tree, and they have the food. Finally, they fall asleep. Chapter 48. Going to the movie. The old man wants to see a film. So he goes to the cinema. At the cinema, Superman film is on. It is his favorite kind of film. So he goes to the ticket box and buys a ticket. He gives the ticket to the ticket collector at the entrance. At the time, he remembers to buy the snack. So he goes to the snack shop and buys the food. And then he goes into the cinema. He finds his seat. He sits down on the seat and watches the film. At first, he smiles. And then he wipes his tear. He screams them. He laughs. He claps. When the film is over, he stands up and goes to the exit. At the outside of the cinema, he meets his friends and tells him, "I like this film very much." Chapter 49. At the beach. Our character is a young man. He wants to take rest at the beach. So he takes the thin bamboo strip hat and deck chair to the beach. At the beach, he unfolds the deck chair and sits on it. Then he puts on the hat and sunglasses. He gazes here and there. He stares at the lovely girl present before him. After that, he looks at the children playing with sand. At the time, he remembers his childhood. About 30 minutes later, the sun shines. So he is sweating and wipes it with a handkerchief. And then he stands up. He takes his sunglasses and hat off. He runs into the water. He feels cold. So he jumps and comes back to the beach. After a few minutes, he runs toward the sea again. He dives into the water. Finally, he swims happily and have a nice day. Chapter 50. Taking pictures. The old man wants to take his family's pictures. Firstly, he loads the film into the camera. He wins the button on the camera. He uses the flash gun so that the picture is better. He tells his family to have the photo taken. They stand in front of the camera. The old man looks them through the camera, but he can't see all of them. It needs to be so close. They spread out of the sight. Firstly, he asks the young boys to sit down. Then he asks the girls to stand in front of the boy. After that, he asks the short girls to stand in front of the tall one. And he asks the thin boy to stand in front of the fat boy. When the position is changed, he looks them through the camera. Now he gets the right position, so he asks them not to move. He turns the switch on and presses the button. Finally, he gets the good family's pictures. Chapter 51. Doing homework. Our character is a young boy. He is a student. Today, he has a lot of homework. His books, papers, and pencils are ready. He sits down to study the lessons. He opens the book. At this time, he feels hungry. So he goes and takes an apple. And then he goes back to his homework. Then his favorite program is on. So he goes to watch TV. The TV program is over. So he goes back to his homework. At that moment, he wants to listen to music. So he turns on the radio. The music is so great that he can't help dancing. So he dances around the radio. When he gets tired, he looks at the clock on the wall. It is late. He has to get to work. Finally, he finishes at all. He puts Chapter 52. Sharpening his pencil. Firstly, the old man picks up the pencil. He looks at the tip of the pencil. He feels it. It's blunt. He wants to sharpen it. So he borrows the sharpener from his friend. He sticks the pencil into the sharpener. He sharpens it by turning the pencil. And then he feeds the tip of the pencil. He cleans the sharpener. He gives it back to his friend. Finally, he writes a letter with this pencil.
Chapter 53. Getting ready for a test. Our character is a young girl. She has to sit for the test. So she chooses the subject what she has to study. And then she sits down on the chair. She opens the book. She reads the lesson out loud. Then she closes the book and recites it. She opens the book again and repeats. She checks the lines she can't remember. She underlines them. She thinks again and again about these lines. Then she asks her younger brother to check the lines when she recites. He asks the questions. She can answer all of the questions. Now she feels relaxed. It is the right time to sleep. She arranges the books. She goes to bed and puts the blanket on her body. After a few minutes, she falls asleep and dreams about the test. In her dream, she passes the test without difficulty.
Chapter 44. At the Christmas time, our character is an old man. He is a Christian. Today is 24th December. It is eve of the Christmas day. So he wants to celebrate the Christmas ceremonies tomorrow. He prepares the things to celebrate the Christmas ceremony. Firstly, he decorates the Christmas tree with the fancy things and colorful ribbons. He puts the present for his family's member under the Christmas tree. After that, they sing the Christmas carol. The old man puts the wreath on the door. He bakes the cakes by himself. The children believe that if they write the letter what they want on Christmas Eve, they could get it surely. So they hang the big stocking on the wall so that Santa Claus comes and puts the presents into it. They set out milk and cookies on Christmas Eve as a snack for Santa. On Christmas Eve's midnight, the old man goes and sees his grandchildren if they fall asleep surely. And then he puts on a white beard and a red suit like Santa Claus, and puts the presents under the Christmas tree. On the Christmas morning, the old man awakens his grandchildren and says, "There are many presents under the Christmas tree." So the children goes to the Christmas tree and find the presents. They unwrap the package. They find out the dolls and toys. At that night, the old man and his family members have the dinner. The main dish is turkey. They celebrate the Christmas ceremony after.
Chapter 55. Sick at school. Our character is a young girl. Now she is sitting for the exam. At that time, she has a headache. So she puts her head on the desk. Then the teacher comes to her and asks what happens. She tells how she feels. The teacher writes a letter to the school's doctor. She takes the letter to the doctor and gives it. The doctor asks her, "How do you feel now?" She explains to the doctor. The doctor puts the thermometer under her tongue. The temperature is 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. The doctor calls her home to take her. About 15 minutes later, her mother comes in. Her mother takes her to home. At home, the The girl falls asleep.
Chapter 56. Late to class. Our character is an old man. He always wants to know the modern subject. Although he becomes aged, he never gives at his learning. Now he attends the MBA class and he is late to go to class. Now it is 11 o'clock. It is rather late to attend to school. So he hurries to the class. He drops his books on the road. He picks up the books. And then he goes again. When he reaches the class, he stops. He listens to what the teacher says. Then he opens the door. He tiptoes into the class. But all of the people in the class turned and looked at him. He blushes. He drops his book again. He says he is late and came here to get in time. The teacher smiles and says, "It doesn't matter." The old man sits down on the chair. Finally, he wipes his sweat and sighs heavily. Chapter 57. Taking a break. Our character is a young boy. Now he is changing the class. At the time the teacher says that it is break time. He gets up and stretches out. He leaves his book on the table. He goes out of the class. He leans against the wall. He talks the people passing by him. Then he wants to have something. He goes to the automatic selling machine and takes the food after. He inserts the coin into the machine. He takes them to the table and sits down and eats them. At that time, his friends come to him.
Chapter 58. Going to the library. Al-Qaeda is a bachelor. He feels bored in his house. He used to read the book by borrowing from the library. Today, he wants to read another book. All of the books he borrowed are finished. So, he goes to the library and returns them to the clerk. The clerk checks the books, and the clerk tells him the books are overdue, so he has to pay some fine. After that, he looks at the books on the shelves. Then he remembers the saying, "Crime doesn't pay." He likes the detective story. He finds it among the books. Moreover, he wants to know about China. He asks the officer in charge where he can find the books about China. The officer tells him where the books are. He chooses the book on the shelf and finds the books he wants. Then he finds the book written about love. He takes the books he wants to borrow to the checkout counter. He shows his library card to the clerk. The clerk lets him take the books and then he says, "Thanks a lot." Chapter 59. Lost Umbrella. Al-Qaeda is an old man. Today it's raining heavily outside. He has to go to work, so he needs his umbrella. If he goes outside without umbrella, he will catch a cold. But he can't find it. He looks in the closet. It isn't there. He looks under the table. It isn't there. He looks under the chair. It isn't there. He looks on the top of the bookcase. It isn't there. He looks under the newspapers. It isn't there. He moves the sofa. He looks behind the sofa. It isn't there. He can't find it. He is late for work. He has to go now. He puts on his hat. He opens the door. Oh, there it is, on the porch. At last he found it.
Chapter 60. A rainy day. Our character is a young girl. She likes walking in the rain. So she takes the umbrella and walks in the rain. There is a water depression in front of her. She steps over it. She closes the umbrella. She runs in the rain. There is a patch of mud. She passes through the mud. She slips. She falls down onto the mud. She gets up and looks at herself. Her clothes are dirty. So she goes back to the water depression. She stamps on it. She jumps. But her dirt is not clean. So she gets out of the water to brush it. She goes back home. At home, she changes her clothes.
Chapter 61. A beautiful day. The old man looks through the window. Oh, what a beautiful day. He sighs and goes outside. He stretches and yawns. He lies down on the ground. At the time, the sun begins shining. He is sweating. He looks here and there. Then he finds a shady tree. He goes there. He sits under the tree. He leans against the tree. He sighs again and stretches and yawns. He lies down the shady tree. Finally, he falls asleep.
Chapter 62. It's raining. Our character is a young girl. She has to go to school, but it is raining outside. So she takes the umbrella out of her bag. She opens it. She is walking in the rain. At that time, the rain stops. She closes her umbrella and shakes it. She folds it and puts it back into the bag. Then she goes on walking. It starts to rain again. It is raining more heavily. So she opens the umbrella. She walks hurriedly. At school, she closes the umbrella. She looks down at her shoe. The water is in it. So she takes off her shoe and lets the water out.
Chapter 63. A windy day. Our character is a young boy. It is a windy day. He is walking against the wind. The wind is blowing. He zip-zaps his coat. He bends his body forwards to resist the wind. At this time, a hat rolls back by him by wind. He chases it. He grabs the hat. He gives it back to the old man. He goes on his walking.
Chapter 64. A snowy day. Our character is a young girl. It is a snowy day. It looks so good. She looks through the window. It is snowing heavily outside. She needs to wear the thick fur coat. So she puts on the fur coat. Then she puts on the fur hat. She puts on the fur glove. She puts on the fur stockings. She puts on the boot. She is ready to go. Now she is walking in snow.
Chapter 65. A foggy day. Our character is a young boy. He is driving on the way home. It is a foggy day, so he can't see the road. He turns on the headlight, and then he slows down the speed. He hunches over his steering to see before his car clearly. Then he drives carefully. On the way, he sees the stop sign. So he watches for the other cars. After that, he goes on his driving. Fortunately, the sun rises. He can drive clearly. Finally, he arrives home safely, and he sighs.
Chapter 66. A sunny day. Our character is a young girl. It is a sunny day, so she changes her clothes. She takes the cassette, skin lotion, and carpet to line on. Then she gets out of her house. She spreads the carpet. She rubs the skin lotion. She plays the cassette. She listens to music lying prone. She turns over. The sun shines brightly, so she feels very hot. She goes into the room and takes a plastic bottle. And she fills the bottle with some water under the tap. She takes it. She sprays the water on her body. Now
She feels comfortable, so she smiles. Finally, she falls asleep in prone position.